Hello.
We're pretty blessed in this province with the amount of talent that comes out of our world here. And here with us today, we have some seasoned veterans and some up-and-comers of the next generation of storytellers in this province. So happy to have that. This is today's conversation is going to be around indie film. It's going to be around how these guys work, what they do, and how they get the product out there, and how you guys get a chance to see it and engage with it. So I'll start it off by just introducing the people that are up here. Start off on the other side here. So we got Braden Croft at the end there on the right.
Hey guys.
Beside him, Leo Weiser. Beside Leo, Becky Scott. Mike Peterson. Spencer Estabrooks. Greg Jeffs. Brennan Hunter. And we've got Derek Clayton. And at the end there, we've got Braden Croft.
Again.
I'm sorry, Tim Rutherford. Sorry, Tim Rutherford. Sorry, man. You got a double clap on that. Yeah. So I think the way we'd like to kind of start this today is just get these guys to start talking a little, and ladies to start talking a little bit about the genre, what they work in, why. Maybe give us a little bit of description of why you chose it. Is it based on likes, wants? Is it based on knowing what product sells out there? What are you dealing in? So maybe what we'll do is we'll start it from this side here if we can.
I started early in high school. We just kind of fell in love with monster movies and 80s style, a lot of Corman-esque movies where monsters were really in your face and shredding up your friends. So we really fell into that kind of genre, and it's really so far had really good response at Dead Fest and in Edmonton. We film our primarily in a video store, and it all kind of centers around the dying cause that is the video store, and the magic that really poured out of that place and places like it. So we're just trying to keep that kind of love of film alive, and hopefully everybody really likes it.
It does. And that's actually kind of how I started. I was just a fan of going to this video store, and then the guy that runs it, Kevin Martin, he was involved in some film stuff in town, and then kind of asked me to come on board. So him and I basically are doing Dead Fest along with a great crew of people in Edmonton right now, and through that we've just grown. We're in our 6th year now, and we've been able to start bringing people in, but we've also been able to start exposing talent like Cody and Braden. Well, Braden was exposed already. Well, that just sounded wrong. Sorry, Braden. But we've just been able to kind of bring talent to Edmonton and show them the talent that's already existing. So it's been really fun.
I'm a Calgary-based producer, and part of our interest is to stay and shoot local and utilize local crews and locations and try and make some industry here that we haven't been seeing as much of in the last maybe 5 years. And I primarily collaborate with Mike Peterson, who wrote and directed Lloyd the Conqueror, which I produced. And we are interested in predominantly pursuing genre titles at this time.
We started working in horror because we wanted to find the most unfundable genre of film to get into. No, we're fine. You go to movies because you want to watch something interesting, and this is what interests us. So we got into this. It's a pain in the ass to be told all the time no when you're trying to find funding through a traditional channel, but we've seen what people are doing on the panel here, what people are doing out in the world. Making stuff that people want to watch pays off. Films are available online. Films are available on iTunes, theatrical. Places that most traditional dramas that get funding don't go. So it's kind of paid off for us in that mindset.
Spencer Estabrooks. I work with Greg. I'm a director, writer, and editor. I do a lot of post-production stuff as well. Yeah, we do that stuff, and I think we started with a zombie western, and we do zombie films and horror films, and we did another one called The Hunt with Chris Potter, and some awesome monster work by those two culprits at the end, Leo and Becky. But yeah, so it screened yesterday. Yeah, and we like to make movies that we want to watch fundamentally. So I think that's what everyone likes to do.
Typically I make comedy pieces, but I also make dark pieces. But I became most well known for something that was comedic and very talky, which is actually, the talky part is the opposite of almost everything I'd done before that. So strangely enough, it's becoming easier for me to make more talk-driven, dialogue-driven comedies, but the next thing I'm trying to make is a really dark, almost like absent of comedy type of sci-fi piece. And the genre, the reason for making the genre stuff is that's the kind of stuff that when I go home and watch a movie, that's typically what I put on.
Hi. Our first and only film so far is called Skeleton Girl. We shot it in stereoscopic 3D and stop motion animation. Has a Grimm's fairy tale kind of edge to it. Leo and I actually own a company called Bleeding Art Industries that does special effects, etc. So we chose stop motion as our first film, partly because we thought it would be easier to work in our Bleeding Art shop in terms of utilizing the resources that we had there and to work with inanimate objects instead of live actors for our first film, and to do a short. And we've always liked, Leo can elaborate a bit more on the kind of darker edge, Tim Burton-esque Grimm's fairy tales. So that's kind of the vein of Skeleton Girl and the next one that we're working on called Through the Looking Glass. But we are interested in working on a lot of different things. I mean, our talents are mainly in sort of the horror effects side, but we're interested in doing a lot of other kind of films as well.
What she said. But seriously, yeah, I got started kind of like what you guys did out of high school. I'm just a little older, and my age kind of shows because Dick Smith had just done some incredible gel appliances on Ghost Story, and The Thing, John Carpenter's The Thing had just been released, and Poltergeist, and so I was very lucky that in all the Indiana Jones, I was very lucky that that really spurred me on and when I had to be there. So I have got a background in special effects, and that's coming on 22 years now. So what Becky was saying was a really logical extension, that seeing as we tell stories through special effects, that we could do it ourselves and do it from beginning to end using a special kind of environment. Cool.
Yeah, I didn't pass my mic around. I was that guy today. I just held on to it. I'm an Edmonton-based filmmaker. I went to school in Vancouver for it. Originally, I was hoping to get into special effects, funny enough, for horror stuff, like a big Fangoria, Rue Morgue sort of thing. I ended up turning to writing, shooting, directing, editing, really all of those things, because I couldn't afford to hire a crew. So came back to Alberta and made it in and around Edmonton, Fort Saskatchewan, Sherwood Park area. Shot it on next to nothing, and we managed to find distribution through Phase 4. So I guess I'm well known for horror and thriller stuff, but the next one we got around the bend is a kind of a Shaun of the Dead meets Bigfoot meets The Wicker Man. And when I say Wicker Man, I mean the good one, not the so good it's, or so bad it's good one with Nick Cage. But yeah, that's what we're doing now.
So obviously, making independent film, there's some challenges to begin with. Funding, trying to find the money to actually make the project, and I think even more so, distribution. People want to watch the films that you're making based on the quality of the films, and also because they enjoy what you're putting out there. But how do you get it out to them? So let's talk a little bit maybe about some of those challenges that you face on being able to get the product to market and getting it in front of those eyeballs that you want to have out there.
Well, we were fortunate enough, like I said before, with Deadfest, they held a contest, and my affiliate couldn't be here today because he's finishing our next short, The Last Video Store, for Fantasia Fest. So they held a contest. We entered. Kevin and Derek really liked our short, and they had asked us to do a short for Michael Biehn, was a guest star. So we kind of put together something in the video store, and it just took off from there. So really, our audience was kind of just forced to watch our stuff. Fortunately for us, however, they really responded. It was really positive. So we started branching out online. We just entered the Cinecoop contest held by Cineplex Odeon, and that's going pretty well for us. We made it in the top 40 and hopefully the top 15, and we're, like I just said, entering Fantasia for the first time with the last video store short. So we'll see from there. Hopefully we can get a little bit extra attention. Yes, Lacey?
I think you and Derek should tell everybody about
Oh yeah. We entered the ABCs of Death contest as well with a short called T is for Tiramisu. It was it was a homage movie to Street Trash. If you ever seen that, I play a hobo who melts. Getting funding was really hard, so I was the director and the special effects guy, and I also played the main character. Hopefully with a little bit more attention towards us, we can find some actors and producers, and I won't have to do all the work, which just makes it difficult, and I'm not the best actor at all.
We just got tired of giving you prizes every month because you guys kept winning. So you weren't forced upon anybody. People kept asking. And that's what happened, like with the Michael Biehn short. People kept asking to see more. So every month, every time we did a movie, these guys would crank out a short for us that kind of related to that and usually involved some grievous injury to Josh somehow. He's been punched in the face and thrown downstairs and stuff like that. That's our lead actor who's not here. But no, these guys do great. Like we're thrilled to have them as a part of what we do. And you know, there's a lot of film collectives and stuff like that in town that, you know, are kind of like, you know, we're a collective and very serious. And I watch what these guys do, and they're like you said, you're cameraman, you're director, you're the monster, you're everything all in one shot. And I'd see a lot of shorts that are just like, you know, cut one, cut two, cut one, cut two. And what we saw with these guys, the camera they used was a character. It was just going in and out, and amazing, crazy shots, and just tight editing and so well done. It just blew everybody away. So you guys earned your place. Crowds love you.
I think we were talking about how we're getting our films seen. Is that accurate, to get back to that? With our film, we kind of knew we wanted to pursue a lot of the gamer, cosplay, kind of nerd culture audiences. So we've actually been doing as many, probably more convention touring than festival touring, and we've been really lucky with our festival tours for Lord the Conqueror. So a lot of genre fests like Fantasia and heading down into US, Europe, and Australia this past couple of months as well. And we did get a Canadian release through Alliance in the fall. It was on Super Channel and all your VOD outlets, and it's on iTunes, and it's coming out on DVD, Blu-ray, VOD, North America wide this summer. So we know that part of it. We've got a little bit of international sales in terms of Spain and the UK, and we're still working with our sales distribs to solidify more markets, because it's kind of, you know, little pieces all around to culminate in one bigger piece.
So we started on shorts, basically because we didn't have enough money to do a feature, and it's a big mistake to take out $10,000 and try to do a feature-length film. And the reason why we ended up doing shorts is because we focused on doing what's essentially commonly known as a proof of concept. We took the short out. We'll use Deadwalkers. You know, we took it out, went to LA, London, Spain, all the big major genre festivals, got iTunes distribution. But the reason why we chose to take that route is we know we're not losing money. It's a development on a feature film. When that feature film goes, any cash invested on that short film, we're recouping in our development costs anyways. And it allows us to test. If we make something that's shit, we'll know it's shit, and instead of spending a bunch of money on a feature, we know that no one wants to watch it on a short. So basically we chose to pursue that route as a way to not losing our ass and losing a ton of money in the process.
Yeah, we got distribution. That was our big thing that got us, because we got a distributor who took us into iTunes and a bunch of other foreign markets. We got into Movie Central, I think, as well.
We're big in Latin America.
Yeah, huge. Latin American pay-per-views. Did awesome.
The in terms of getting your movie out there, right? There's two different sort of things we're talking about. One is short films and one are feature films, and they're very different, right? So I'll talk about feature films, and Brendan sort of spoke specifically about Lloyd the Conqueror, so I'll talk in general. In general, you know, you make your first feature film, and basically most people won't give you any sort of pre-sale because they don't have to. So they'll be like, make it, show it to us, then we'll, we might buy it. But they're not going to put a bunch of money on you when you're for your first film because they don't have to. It's a big risk, right? So you either have to, because essentially it becomes a funding strategy, these pre-sales, right? So you either get money through telefilm, or you raise it privately, or you do a combination of both, or some sort of formula like that. But once you do make your movie and you haven't been able to sell it up front, right now there's sort of, it's a very, no one's really sure what's going on right now. Like even the distributors aren't really all sure what's going on. And there's so many new outlets with different types of VOD type services, DVD on demand type services through like Amazon. And then there's always, theatrical, which is always sort of held up as sort of the top of the mountain. But it's really almost always a loss leader, unless you're, one of the studio pictures, like the Avengers or something like that. Typically, you're putting your film out there and you're going to lose your money or break even if you're lucky. And that's just going to help with your other sales and getting it out just because it raises your level of exposure. But there isn't really no one really knows what's going on with how to get your movie out there right now, right? There's 100 different ways to do it, and you kind of do what you think works best for your movie and the best deal that you can make. But it's not like it may have been in the past where you could have went to 5 countries and done your pre-sales, and that was essentially your financing plan to finance your film. So it's kind of in the same way that it's scary and unknown right now, it's also very exciting.
Okay. I'll try not to talk very long. So they know even less with 3D. So we shot Skeleton Girl in stereoscopic 3D for a 30-foot screen. Looks awesome in the movie theater. And then we had a 3D distributor in LA that was really interested in licensing it for smaller platforms. And the 3D totally didn't work on the smaller, not totally, but the 3D was quite gentle on the smaller platforms, so they decided not to license it. So we went, oh, okay, so why were we shooting it for a 30-foot screen? I mean, it looks great, but it probably won't, I don't know, we'll see what happens anyhow. On the theatrical release side, we've had other 3D distributor and non-3D approach us to license it. It is a short film. The agreements that I saw were like us giving away absolutely every right. And I'm like, no, I'm not going to, because I know I have a good thing here. It premiered in New York at B-Film, the Underground Film Festival last year, and won Best First 3D Film. It's been on the festival circuit. It's played at Screamfest and in Australia and France and here in Calgary. So we're really learning the ropes too right now, and as Mike said, nobody knows what they're doing, especially with 3D. There's no set record or business model for that, for us to look at revenue projections or ROI on it.
And the most interesting thing is that the film has had more of a life right now in 2D, but 3D is where the excitement is. So people that see it in 3D are really, really excited. People that are seeing it in 2D, which is what most of the platforms are, it's kind of, they see a lot of 2D shorts. So yeah, nobody knows.
But we're actually, because we shot it in 3D and it's also available in 2D, we're hoping to make money on a Blu-ray 3D release later this year with some other 3D shorts. I'm determined to make money on this short if it takes me to the end of my days. And we also made a decision, which, sorry guys, I'm not doing this for our own promo thing, I'm telling the panel this, but Leo and I had a bit of a decision to make a few weeks ago because it was selected to compete in the CBC Short Film Face-Off series, which is going to be coming up. So Leo and I kind of went, oh my God, well, if we say yes, it's totally going to be out there. Do we want it to be out there? Because then that's going to affect any kind of potential distribution for us, at least on the 2D side. And we went, you know what? We're doing some really groundbreaking stuff in 3D and stop motion, and we need to get the word out there and raise our profile. So we decided Leo's got to be on TV for this and not me, that we would be a part of it because we think, we'll see what happens, but we think that there will be more benefit to us getting the national exposure for Skeleton Girl and it being out there in terms of raising financing and interest in the other films that we have planned. So.
And a 3D film costs 30% more kind of is the average rule of thumb that people are talking about. So a 3D film automatically is going to have a higher start rate of doing. So
Everyone's so remarkably in tune and brilliant about setting off and making your films. Because for myself, I never thought of the audience. I never thought of anything really. It was kind of a thing where I came out of film school 4 years later, and I was slowly losing my soul at a horrible construction job. So I looked at the second script I ever wrote, which was really not that great at the time, and without any real caution, I just jumped into it. I didn't make a proof of concept. I didn't make anything like that. Just kind of threw my hat in the ring and tried to make a feature film. I actually talked to Michael Reimer from Battlestar Galactica. He was the main director, and everyone worships that guy for what he did for that series. So the first thing he asked me was, what are you doing? Are you working on shorts? Are you working on feature films? And at the time, I was working on shorts because that's what film school kind of breeds you to do, is make a short, get a calling card, get your name out there, and then try and find the funding. And he immediately kind of just gave me the stink eye and went, you can't sell a short, man. You gotta show film. You're gonna show it anywhere. Maybe a little film festival. Industry people don't do that, man. So he pushed me into shooting this film, feature film, which turned out to be Hemorrhage. And at first, it only went to one film festival, which was our really only snowball chance in hell of seeing any audience. And it was so tiny, just a little Toronto indie fest. And nothing came of it for about 8 months until an old contact through film school saw it, gave it to his higher-ups in a production company at Random Bench. And they loved it. It happened to get like the last spot at the Fantasia Film Fest, and being the great Canadian film fest that they are, they really plugged us out there and got the eyes on the screen. And next thing you know, we're written up in Variety and such. So it's very neat to hear your guys' story and how you guys did it the smart way, really. But at the same time, I think it would have been 2 years from now that I would have shot Hemorrhage to do it the proper way. So there's something to be said for just jumping in with both feet. Is there a question?
Actually, I was just going to go into that as well as that. You live in a province here that you can trigger funding for feature film without having to engage in a feature film or a theatrical distribution license or a TV distribution license. So, is using the web these days in any way, shape, or form? Is anybody engaged in that, or is it's tough to monetize at this point? But it's it's where it's going. So. How are you turning into that as well? The crowdfunding.
Yeah, we went with Indiegogo for I think at the time, I don't know whether it's changed. Kickstarter was only you had to be a U.S. company, I think. It is still okay. So we did Indiegogo for Skeleton Girl. We raised $100. And to be fair, I had no clue what we were doing, right? So we didn't do a great campaign. We're planning on doing it for our next short, Through the Looking Glass. So we'll let you know. I think there's something to be said for it, but we'll see.
There's a small one here now. It's called Invest YYC. That is going to.
For profits, isn't it?
No, they're expanding some stuff out. So yeah. Yeah. So I think it's something to look at as well. A little closer to home.
Seems like that whole Indiegogo, that buzzword's going around, that David Fincher doing The Goon, and forget Veronica Mars and
Zach Braff.
Yeah, Zach Braff.
Fucking bullshit.
Scrubs needs money from you guys to make his next movie. But it's weird. It's such a double-edged sword because for Indiegogo, you're going straight to your audience. And to have people say, yeah, here's some money, make this shit. Like, if I was Scrubs, I would say the same thing. I'd say, oh, I can't make it the way I want it with these guys. Give me some money. And it's really cool because now your audience is letting that happen. Where in another universe, maybe you didn't get that money and you don't get to see what you want to see. So that direct connection allows for a lot of creative films to come out that wouldn't otherwise see the light of day. But then on the flip side, it's these big guys reaching into the small pond where we're trying to fish and saying, taking their own piece of the pie. But I really don't think someone has $10 only for Zach Braff and not us.
I want to start a campaign to make Zach Braff disappear for $100,000. That would be good. But I think one of the things like you were saying, the big fish are in the small pond now, but in which they can do Veronica Mars movie and boom, you got $1 million right there. But I think that was it 5? Oh Jesus. But I think for guys like you guys, I mean, you have to keep, one of the things I'm getting with Indiegogo, just kind of dipping my toes into this, is that you have to keep constantly updating the content. You have to keep constantly on the social media. It's almost like you got to have a full-time job to keep that fresh in everybody's mind, you know? That seems to be what Indiegogo is turning into, which is good and bad in many ways. But if you can raise the money, that's awesome.
I think crowdfunding has a place, you know? Like if you're making something that you can't make because, you know, people with whoever has the power to say yes or no, you know, the mayor of Hollywood or whatever that guy is that makes those decisions, you know, says no, that doesn't fit into the market as we understand it, you know, then you're like, well, I have no other options. I'm going to go crowdfund this because I think people will buy into this. If I connect with, you know, one-on-one to these people that will buy into my vision, then it's got a place. But I think just as like, you know, a way to like kind of throw it out there because people will give you money, but it like has, you know, you don't like the strings attached to it. Like they might want Final Cut because they're giving you $2 million. You know, I totally think that's like totally, it's in such poor taste and like so gross. But I mean, the bigger problem I think with these things is that because you want to be a filmmaker, right? It's like a business. Like you're doing this as a profession, like the way a dentist looks at teeth and, you know, a lawyer looks at the law. So you don't want to be looked at as someone that's like kind of working outside of the economy and someone that only relies on grants to make their projects, which, you know, there are some artists and stuff that do that, and that's a certain kind of art form. But we're not talking about that kind of stuff up here. We're talking about making genre films. You know, this is stuff that people go and watch and they buy and then they watch with their buddies and maybe smoke a joint and watch it again, right? So I don't know. I've got a problem with kind of the whole idea of the crowdfunding thing. I think it's got a place, but I totally think it's inappropriate for certain things.
Well, and just looking at Zach Braff. I mean, Garden State was $2 million. It made $35 million, and that people are funding something that is probably going to make again close to 16 times his money back for him.
But
for him,
I also think
him.
I think there's a bigger problem throughout the business because it's as things are totally changing, right? Totally changing. When I'm on set as a special effects guy, I'm making less than I've ever had in my life, and I'm technically at the top of my profession. So as this kind of stranglehold is happening on production, there's still money happening down whoever's making the money. All the studios, if you look at their results, have crossed have made billions for the shareholders. So I think the problem is that as the big guys start tapping into Indiegogo, there's kind of a laziness that's going to set in, and you're going to start seeing them drawing up all the money. So I'm really worried about Indiegogo and the Zach Braff kind of thing.
Oh, yeah, I just want to say I have heard rumblings of another model similar to Indiegogo and Kickstarter, but instead of getting like T-shirts or signed autographs, you actually buy shares in the film. So if it does well, you actually accumulate for some of the money.
Securities law. Yeah.
So
in the States, but not in London or not in the UK. So in the UK, technically that model can work. In the United States, they have passed laws for that effect, but haven't come into actual action, and nobody knows what's going on. So
and
there's nothing there.
it is interesting because, like, for us, the model of finding financing is very difficult. We cannot approach just anybody to become an investor in our movie. We've got to go to friends and certain people. Yeah, I mean, everybody does. So it makes it very hard for the scale that we're at to do stuff that really pays the bills.
Since we started going into this realm, obviously into the horror stuff, one thing has become abundantly clear, and that is there are a lot of stupid people out there that are not taking unnecessarily stupid steps. Soliciting funds on Facebook for a feature film. There's so much wrong with that, but nobody knows that. That anyone who's smart, anyone who's going to invest is not going to touch them with a 10-foot pole. So they're doing themselves a disservice. And I think one of the big things that's kind of, just again from my own personal opinion, when you get into the Indiegogo stuff, no one's asking the question, why is this stuff not getting funded? Why can't you raise money? Why do you have to go to your friends? And if that's 9 times out of 10, it's usually, again, because it's shit. It needs more development. Development is your friend as a filmmaker. You can take it out. You can see who's reading your script, who's giving you, who's going to buy this if you make it, instead of putting it on a piece of paper and then telling everybody that they need to pay to make it happen. Just more or less just getting ducks in a row before you go out and ask for money.
Yeah, where's the rainbow? Yeah, I think. Yeah, well, well, exactly. It sounds dreary, but you do see some successes come from a variety of different ways, right? So, different models will work for different genres and different projects. Technology. Over the last 5 to 10 years, and specifically over the last 5 years, we've seen this massive shift in cost, in what capacity is, what capabilities are. And then, so in your world, obviously that's important, having the capacity to shoot and to produce at the top level, but cost factors obviously come into play. So, and there's a variety of different genres up here and technology uses. So can we chat a little bit about what that's done for you and how it's changed how you do your work?
Technology like made it possible completely for me to make my first film. Had I have to shoot that on film the old-fashioned way, just analog, it's like more than 100% of your budget's going towards that when you're only making it for 10 grand. You're going to shoot on 16 mil reversal stock, and it's probably going to look like crap because you're only going to have one take at it. So for us, we shot on a DSLR, which is literally, I think a couple of people have a camera. It's just a typical interchangeable lensed camera. We shot Hemorrhage on that, and with a post-production program, Sony Vegas, which is even cheaper than what you could get, say, with Final Cut for Max and whatnot. We had a full post house, and luckily I had the books and the know-how from film school to actually utilize it to some degree. But technology opened it up from being a really shitty black and white quasi-art film into something commercially viable that looked and felt and smelt like a duck. If it quacks, it's a duck. And people at Phase 4, they would constantly ask, like, what was the budget? What was the budget? And my producers that came on after the fact of shooting it said, like, you tell them, and the deal's over. It was shot for such a small amount that they would laugh in our face, show us the door, and say we're not interested. So it's amazing what technology could bring in terms of your final product and just getting it made, period, because that's the only important thing when you're first starting out is getting it in the can. And when you could do that for under 10 grand, it's amazing.
Maybe you and Becky.
Yeah, technology is interesting because we could never have done Skeleton Girl stop motion and in 3D, and plus in the 3 years that it took us to do the film, 7 minutes, 3D had changed so much, and what everybody's opinions of it were, that it was literally, we were trying to keep up. When I went into it, nobody could tell me what the proper calculators were for the interocular to get a nice, really clean interocular on it. That's the both eye sets. What one guy, because I was really reaching deep in LinkedIn, and there's a whole underground stereographic community out there, and he gave me a math formula that was about a page long of figuring out the correct eye separation for the two images, and I'm just going, there's got to be a better way than this. But literally, with the way the technology now, I have an app on my iPhone. None of them are all totally correct, but I can at least run several different scenarios, come up with the best thing, and then I can go back and when we shot Skeleton Girl, also they had just come out with the first kind of affordable 3D television that we could use. So we brought this darn thing in from Korea. We had to wait 4 or 5 weeks for it from the time we found out about it, and because they were just so slammed on orders. And so we got the first, even before our post house, we got one of the first 3D TVs to try and check interocular on. So through the whole process, the things are still changing. But the other thing is, like what you were mentioning, is all our stop motion was done in Stop Motion Pro, which is with DSLRs, which is a program that Aardman uses to make their films, and
The Wallace and Gromit.
yeah, the Wallace and Gromit kind of stuff. But in the past, you would have to shoot your sequence, and then you'd have to send the film to be developed, and then you'd get it back, and then you'd see where all your mistakes were, and then you'd have to shoot it again, because stop motion is pretty meticulous. You get one thing out of frame or one thing moves, and it's, so we were very lucky that it was all there on the computer. We had onion skinning, we had live kind of playback, so we could figure out the motion and this and that totally helped. Sorry, I rambled.
Yeah, it helps a lot. Everyone can make stuff now, I guess, It's good. Yeah, it's super cheap to produce stuff, but you still have to have good ideas, I guess.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. You can get a good camera for $300. A GoPro. You can get a DSLR for 500. They're so cheap. They're so amazing. You don't need a red cam. You don't need to shoot in 4K. You can do whatever you want. And just the post-production industry has like fallen from its like lofty perch in Hollywood. Color correction is a great example. The DaVinci Resolve suite used to be, I think, $600,000. Blackmagic bought them and now releases that software for free. You can buy, and it's only for HD, so you can't go up to 2K, you can't go to 4K, but you can do 1920 by 1080 with the exact same color correction software they used for decades in Hollywood, which again used to cost $600,000. Came with a nice computer for $600,000, but now I can run it on my laptop and color grade whatever I want.
So the good news, Spencer and I work as a director. He handles directing, editing, and I do the writing and producing stuff. I use paper. Paper. It hasn't changed in a while, but it's how you can sell movies, and that's extremely important and something that a lot, especially when you get into tech conversations, don't forget paper, because you can't outsell a movie without paper. It's automatic. Your insurances, everyone on this panel is walking funny because they've had to deal with E&O insurance, I bet, at some point. And it's all the same. Like, technology is clearly accessible, but the key, from my opinion, is the basic paper, because you need that more than anything before you even start shooting with all the fun stuff. Make sure it's all papered right.
Actually, if I could jump in Jen, for just a second, is that I think Skeleton Girl was Bravo Fact funded, and I really think that what got us in there was that we sent them maquettes. So we actually we actually did little sculptures. So we sent them models and little dolls and stuff of what the show was going to look like, and I think that really pushed us ahead for sure.
Well, and it's interesting because you walk onto sets now, and you see the viral van, for example, pulling up something that's $600 or $700 that pulls onto the
$650 a day from William F. White.
Okay, so like I said, $600 or $700 pulls onto set and takes care of a lot of what your needs are right there, and go back a few years and that the capacity wasn't there, and since everything's sort of gone to that digital realm, I guess what I was thinking about is when we start talking about technology, it really does bring it back to that human resource, right? It goes back to creativity, it goes back to the eye, it goes back to what the vision is of the product. So with the capacity to work that much quicker and that much easier, it changes what you're capable of doing. So it's important.
And just the last thing on technology was we had a DCP made, which is called it's a digital cinema package, because we were projecting on Christie projectors in 3D, blah blah blah. And actually we finished our film in 2K. It was really interesting because when we first got the quotes for that, the DCP making was only done in New York and Los Angeles, and it was $6,000 or $10,000 for our 7-minute short. And now I got a buddy that's doing it on his laptop. So, and you need a digital cinema package because it actually, business-wise, it also helps you control the release of your film in a kind of motion picture market.
So let's talk a little bit about crews and about what we do here in Alberta. So one of the big selling tools that we have when we go out to the world is the quality of the crew base here in the province. And as we know, it's extremely busy here right now. And so these crews are running pretty thin. And so we're in a situation where, again, when I come onto sets and I see you guys working, you have some of the top people in the marketplace working with you. And obviously, you're not paying them top dollar. There's got to be an interest in the genre or in the project itself. But so can you talk a little bit about your crews and how you convince them to come in and how you keep them working?
Well, I mean, yeah, I think that's in line with, I think a lot of us are Indigenous filmmakers wanting to stay Indigenous, and that's part of it is certainly on the sets that we run, we bring in a lot of experienced people, of course, and then we try and cultivate the next generation as well. So whether that's the, say, current class or the alumni, or the new people that are getting into the scene that need that kind of mentorship but also need that experience, and trying to allow opportunities for them to grow and want to stay and want to invest their time in the community and growing with these fledgling filmmakers. So we obviously have a very mixed bag of always having those big VIP generals, and then you know, a lot of new and fledgling talent to round out the obviously budget challenged features. So.
You guys shooting a video store with a camera.
Paying a crew, that's a very interesting concept. Yeah, we've just kind of started compiling in our latest short an actual dedicated crew for the first time, and it's been really enlightening. Just meeting a lot of young filmmakers, fledgling filmmakers that are eager to get experience in perhaps different genres that they wouldn't have, they themselves don't have any experience in. We get a lot of people very interested in how monsters are built and how you shoot these kind of creature effects. We've dealt with several groups that they kind of make comedy movies, so they've come out and helped us and lend us their supplies. But being on set of The Hunt was really an enlightening experience, seeing so many hands available, doing so many little jobs, and everybody's there to work and dedicated. It was really an inspiration to take our game to the next level and really try and find out of our friends who's willing to be a crew and who, if and when we get money, would be somebody that I would pay to have on set. So really, I guess, having a crew is very exciting concept for me. And I'm really looking at, you know, Greg Jeffs here and his $650 van of goodies. You know, pending I could ever afford something like that. But time will tell.
It is very affordable. Alberta's service-driven, service production-driven, and that's the strength and backbone of this province. And so what we, as independents, I feel, as anybody who's considering producing independently, horror films are just fun. They're fun. The end result may be depressing and dark, but when you're on set, there's not one person who's not blood-covered and smiling. And because we're so service production driven, we don't necessarily see those films come up on a general basis. We see cowboy movies and once taking advantage of our vistas, we can make movies that keep our creative people creatively stimulated and keep our crews happy.
So we got a couple minutes, so we'll take a couple questions if we can.
Darren Aronofsky. I guess you guys would know him best for Black Swan and whatnot. But films in the 90s there, like Buffalo 66 by Vincent Gallo, and again, Aronofsky's Pi. A lot of these films were made for under 80 grand. I think Pi was 50, and Christopher Nolan from the Batman series, he did his following film for 8 grand, which is amazing considering it's shot on film. Yeah, those things directly affected me too, because it showed you could actually make a film for that amount of money and make it quality if you know what you're doing. And to speak for the crew thing, I was going to chirp in and kind of say I'm with Tim on that. And man, I would love to get a crew, period. Because for, you know, do-it-yourself films, DIY stuff, you truly have to do it yourself, most of it. And for us, I think I was directing. I was doing most everything except the sound whenever possible. And the makeup girl did the sound for a good third of the shoot. And then our lead actor, when he wasn't on screen, would hold the boom, and this person would light, that person would light. So it's funny when you watch things like Robert Rodriguez and making his El Mariachi, like, he did the same thing. So if he could do it, why can't any other kid that could afford just a dinky little camera and a boom pole?
Okay. Any other questions?
I know it's not your necessarily cup of tea or what you're doing right now, but do you see a role for animation
I'm actually here as a voice guest for the convention because I do a lot of cartoons, and there's a great studio here that does a lot of dub work and foreign language ADR, and I'd love to produce either a animated feature or a maybe a short serial, because I love that stuff. I wish there was more of that created in this province. I know Ontario has really got a hotbed of that stuff going on, and I think we're underutilized in that world.
What kind of animation are you speaking of?
3D animation.
3D computer or live? Yeah.
Oh, 3D. Oh, that's computers.
Because
So not making cartoons at all. Okay, bye.
Big budget stuff.
Because on puppet animation and that kind of stuff, the stuff that we're getting into, most of the Canadians escape and they go down and work for Robot Chicken or over for Leica. So, sorry, am I too quiet? So there's Leica is in Oregon. They're the people that did Coraline and that other one that was Paranorman. So puppet animation is getting quite popular again. It never really went away. It just sort of went into the commercial world. But yeah, I'd love to see more of that. That's why we're doing it, because we're not seeing enough of that. Love to get into some creature puppets like what Henson was doing. Everybody just dashes so quickly over to CG, and that's one of the big problems for our special effects departments. Is it's all going CG ways.
There's Escape from Planet Earth, which was just made in Vancouver too by 2 Canadian guys. And I don't know how successful it was at the box office, but I think it did pretty well. So if that did well, there will be more. And then if they do it in Vancouver, then they might do it here.
Yeah, we got some great animation folks in town here that do most of their work outside of the province, but they live here and they practice their craft here. So it is something that's existing here, just not probably not as well known as some of the independent and feature stuff that's going on. We've kind of hit our time limit here. Hoping that these folks will be available if you have any more questions outside here. So thanks for coming, and thanks to the panel for your insights. And so thanks very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Lloyd the Conqueror is playing tomorrow at 12:30 here as well. Not to do any promotions or anything.
Tomorrow at 12:30 in the Burns Room at the Big Four is Lloyd the Conqueror free screening.
And get on Cineku.com and vote for the last video store this weekend. We got 9 Alberta nominees in the top 40. Oh. And that's it.
Oh, it's so nice. Oh.
There you go. Thanks.